Well, hey everyone, and welcome to KPC Underground. Aaron here. I am your host for this show. Hey, it's the podcast that we do right underneath the stage here at Kirkland Performance Center, and you might be able to hear in the background, there's music going on up there because we have a show tonight, and I'm very excited to be here with Azam Ali from NIYAZ. Welcome, and thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks, Aaron. This is fun.
Yes. And this is the first podcast we're doing while there's like actual music going on upstairs. This isn't exactly a soundproof studio down here. We like to keep things professional, but this is just a test of how good we are at trying to isolate our sound and everything. So it'll be an adventure, but
it's
I appreciate
real.
you
It's
joining
like,
us.
the sound check happening, even if it leaks through here.
Exactly.
It's a real, you're capturing a very real moment of us being here together.
We're like, it's like we're backstage at the festival, kind of a thing. So I don't want to keep you too long, but I wanted to kind of just ask you a few questions
Absolutely.
about your experience and your creativity and things like that. So your music, for people who are maybe new to NIYAZ, is sort of this fusion of electronic music with a lot of these traditional sort of Persian instruments and lyrics and Sufi poetry and things like that. And you have some original lyrics as well. What inspired you to kind of come up with that combination? And what is, what's inspiring about that combination to you and your creativity?
Well, I was born in Iran and I grew up in India since the age of 4. And then I moved to the US when I was 15. And as soon as I came to the US, I started exploring a lot of electronic music. It just something about it resonated with me. And I'm always interested in juxtapositioning things that don't necessarily belong together. So, you would not think that these ancient instruments would work against, electronics, and finding that medium, when we began NIYAZ originally with our original member, Carmen Rizzo, nothing like this really existed in the Persian genre. In the Indian music scene, they were way ahead of their time. And because I'd grown up in India, so the Asian underground movement was a big part of, sort of my listening habits. But what interested me about it is bringing the ancient to the future. So also choosing very old folkloric music and old poetry, mystical poetry that had very universal meanings. They were not religious, but they were spiritual, so everybody could relate to them. And then bringing this element of modernism to it. Yeah. And in that process, also telling the story of what it's like for us as immigrants coming from these ancient traditions and assimilating into Western civilization.
Right. That's so interesting. You said something there that was like spiritual, but not necessarily religious. How do you see that distinction for you personally?
For me, the distinction is it's a much more personal inward journey as opposed to, if you're religious, it's a much more external expression. You have this community, you go to church, you go to temple, and you have this community that you are part of, and you pray together, and it's a lot of outward expression and experiences. Not to say that they don't have an inner journey, but whereas when you're spiritual, you may not have that. A lot of people don't even like to talk about what their beliefs are. And it doesn't mean they don't have any. It just means, I always say your spiritual life should be like your sex life. It's private, And when people ask, sometimes it's amazing. People will just ask me point blank, are you this? Are you that? Yeah. And I would never think to ask somebody what their it's as personal as your, intimate life. I just don't think of it that way.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you mentioned you were born in Iran. You grew up in India, and then you moved to the States when you were 15. What role do you see sort of geography and culture play for you? And then how has your creativity or your music changed over the years as you've as you've sort of lived here, for a while? Has the culture of America, if there is a culture here, influenced that at all in some way? Or how do you see the role of geography and culture when it comes to creativity?
Well, I've always thought of myself more as a global citizen.
Yeah.
I don't feel at home in any one particular place, but I feel at home everywhere. And
Sure.
America has been incredibly kind to me because I don't, I think about this a lot. Would I have been able to do what I have been able to do in any other country? Maybe Europe. I have European friends who are also Iranian or Indian or Arab, and they live in Europe, and I see them struggle, in the art scene, and I wonder if maybe it was easier for me because I was in America,
Right.
and I think the greatest thing about being here is we may have to do
They're
this
really
all
going
over
up
again.
there. Yeah, we'll see.
It's the bass,
It's
you
the
know.
bass. You got to have that bass.
We gotta have the
that
bass.
We're all about that bass here. Yeah.
But the thing is, if you have a great idea and if you're a visionary and you're willing to work incredibly hard, there is a lot of room to grow in America, where I think in
Yeah.
a lot of other places in the world you can have all of the above, but the ceiling is just so low, and then
Yeah.
you get to a point where you just can't break through it.
Right.
So to answer the question in a sort of long roundabout way, I think that we began with a certain idea of wanting to tell our story as Iranian immigrants coming from this ancient culture, assimilating
Yeah.
into a sort of Western modern culture. And then as we starts telling our story, what was odd is majority of our audience ended up being non-Iranians.
Huh,
The
yeah.
Iranians came a lot later, or the Indians came a lot later. And we realized that we were actually telling a very universal story
Right.
about the human experience. And that began to influence the way we start creating music. And then we expanded. So now our music really kind of
Right.
covers a lot of regions in the Persian Gulf area. Turkish, we perform a lot of Turkish music. There's
Right.
Turkish instruments on stage. There's Arabic music, Arabic instruments, Indian. I grew up in India, so that's always an
Yeah.
integral part of my expression. So it's a
Yeah.
kind of mixture, and I think if that doesn't describe what America is, I don't know what
Yeah.
does.
Well,
We
no,
are a
that-
melting pot.
Well, no, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is you said you don't feel like you really belong anywhere necessarily, or you feel like you belong everywhere. I do feel like that is kind of a uniquely American thing. I think America itself is is a very young country, obviously, and is still kind of trying to find what its identity is, and that's being kind of written every day by all the kinds of different people who live here. So I wanted to drill down on one more thing you said, which was, kind of this universal experience of music. And I do think, I listened to your music quite a bit over the last couple of days, and
You're like, it sucks.
the word, no,
I'm just
I really
kidding.
didn't like it. No, obviously it's like very cool. And I think it's, sometimes with music that's not necessarily, super westernized or whatever, maybe there's an adjustment period or whatever, but I felt like I understood the feeling of it kind of right away. And even, I looked up, NIYAZ means yearning or is that the right translation for it? Sort of
Absolutely,
yearning?
yeah.
And I feel
In
like
so many
I could
languages.
I could hear that, I could hear
that's wonderful.
the yearning. And I think that's, especially in your vocals, obviously. And even though I don't understand the lyrics are in, a different language, most of the songs, I think probably all the songs, but I felt like I could hear, I guess, the longing, the yearning for something. What is that thing for you, and why do you think that is such an integral part of your music and music in general?
Oh my God, that becomes such a philosophical question, and an existential one at
Yeah.
the same time, because, the word yearning doesn't quite capture what NIYAZ means, but it's the closest thing. And I love that word because it has the same meaning in all the languages I sing in: Turkish, Urdu, Farsi. It's kind of a very universal word, and it's a kind of a spiritual longing. It's something. It's this feeling that you have as a human being that you feel that there's something more to this experience, but you can't quite put your finger on it. And some people go to religion for it. Some people go to music. Some people become devout hedonists.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
it's a kind of like it's just becomes your own personal journey of what it is that you
Right.
are trying to get at. But the whole point is that we are trying through the arts, whether it's through poetry, through music, through painting or writing, we're trying to capture what the human experience is. What is it to be human? What is it, this being, just being in this world? And I think that really fundamentally it becomes about that, about kind of trying to find the right emotion and words and rhythm and melody to capture what it is to really be human, but to want something more than that, because deep down you feel that there's something more than that.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I feel that too. And I think, that's why I think it feels right to, and that feels like, music feels like the right, or just like a really easy avenue to express that kind of universal longing for whatever that is. We're all like longing for something, whatever it is, love, connection, and if you want to call that, some kind of communication with something divine or something just more out there. You want to understand your place in the universe, sort of a thing.
But it's also that key word, connection. But that connection also happens. Also we live in a society that is so constantly we are isolated, where we just it just seems like every day something new is invented that makes us isolate even more and more.
Yes.
And I think we crave connection, we crave it so much. And that's why a place like social media exists, but it's a false reality. It does not give you that true human connection that is absolutely the life force, that it's what makes it's what really makes us human. And for me, social media is a perfect example of something that removes humanity. People allow themselves to behave in ways, to say and do things in the sort of fantasy world that they wouldn't necessarily in the real world, and that for me just strips away at our humanity. So I think the arts become very important, and they are becoming more important as we even modernize even more. And the other aspect of it, which is very important to me, is I come from a culture that nowadays is always in the news. Iran is in the news every day because of what is happening, and it's not Iran has become the symbol of religious extremism. What happens to a country when it is ruled by religion and not by human beings, And I think that when you live in a secular society and you have the freedom of expression, I've never sang in my own country of birth, It's illegal for women to sing in Iran. So I've never sang there, and for that reason alone, I think the appreciation for living in a secular society and being able to express myself freely becomes so important, because in a secular society, music and art becomes our guiding light.
Right.
Even if people don't want to have religion in their life, art can be a guiding light for us,
Right. Wow. That's really well said, and I totally resonate with that as well. And I could talk to you for like an hour, but I know I have to let you go because you have to they're probably asking for you up there right now to come and sound check.
It's okay. I love these conversations because these are really what matters, the idea behind the music. And I love I love nothing more when I hear what you said, that you have no idea what I'm singing about, but you feel something.
Right.
And to me, that's the beauty of music. It's the most esoteric of the arts, because it's not tangible. It's not tangible like anything else. You cannot see it. Like even poetry, I'm a huge poetry fanatic, but I love words, but you can see them. I can capture them, but you can't capture music. It's so esoteric and so ephemeral, and it's supposed to be felt. And I love. And maybe that happened to me because I grew up in India and I had no idea about the language, and I just would hear this music and it just moved me so much. And later I got introduced to Renaissance choral music, and same thing. I had no idea what they were singing about, but it resonated with me. And that's when I realized that actually music is better almost when you don't understand it. You can assign your own meaning to it,
Yeah, I love that idea. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you for having me.
And be sure to go and follow NIYAZ and their travels and all, see them in a city near you. I'm not sure if you're on tour right now or, traveling around or whatever, but be sure, definitely everyone listening out there and watching, to check out their music. I'm going to put their link on the screen here and in the notes below. And Azam, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Are you ready to go upstairs and have some fun now?
We're ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Let's
do
go.
It. All right.
Let's go.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Good night. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for KPC Underground. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider supporting KPC at kpcenter.org/donate. Your generosity helps us keep this and other programs going at Kirkland Performance Center. Be sure to check out our website for the latest events coming up. And hey, we'd also love to hear from you. Please rate our podcast, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. And if you have a specific question or an idea for a show, email us at podcast@kpcenter.org. Thanks for listening.